A middle-aged man with a slender face, who stood at the front and seemed to be a civil officer, remarked upon hearing Aura's words. At any rate, congratulations on obtaining a groom, Your Highness. Now, as what kind of person did Zenjirou appear to you? That middle-aged man, Fabio Debake, was Aura's private secretary. Originally the private secretary was a position without much authority, but at the present time, Aura hadn't appointed a prime minister, nor an admiral, and lead the government and army by herself. So his authority as the queen's right hand was unimaginable vast. The queen lightly shrugged her shoulders on the question of her trusted retainer, then. He is far more keen than I had imagined. Moreover, he possesses a cool judgment and a fair amount of audacity. I say it is an unlucky surprise. She answered flatly. Determining her evaluation, which only sounded like a praise, as an unlucky surprise, was proof that the queen wasn't seeking a capable husband. The ideal husband for Aura was a man that drowned himself in the offered luxury, was satisfied by simply having practical desires like money, woman and delicacies fulfilled, and showed not the slightest interest in political power. At first I assumed that he was of humble upbringing, but judging by his intelligence, he might belong to an aristocrat class in the other world. That cannot be ruled out. However, if that is the case, it is not unthinkable that Zenjirou-sama has some kind of ulterior motive for accepting this marriage. If you wish to annul the engagement with him, we can give up on resummoning him a month later. The man, who said that, was the elder in the purple robe that had stood on the left of Aura when Zenjirou came to this world. In reply to the words of Karpa's royal archmage Aspaldian, Aura turned up her nose at him and shook her hand vehemently. Stop jesting, old geezer. Are you suggesting I should take the insatiable wolf of the Guion family or the marionette of the Marquez family as my groom? If I were to do that, Karpa would fall to ruin from civil strife after we finally lived through the war. The old mage showed a wry smile in response to the queen's curt words, stroked his long grey beard, then picked up on the groom candidates that the queen had criticized. Your Highness, you are being too harsh. Sir Puyol Guion is a brilliant general and Sir Rafaelo Marquez is an excellent civil official. I am aware of that even without you telling me, old geezer. I myself put them into these positions. However, I am saying that no matter how capable they are, an overly ambitious man or a youngling that does not dare to oppose his parents are not suited to be my husband. Aura's evaluation of them was harsh, but by no means wrong, so the aged magician couldn't say anything back anymore. Then you are going to take Zenjirou as your husband after all? However, not only has he a different social standing, but he is also from a different world. I believe there will be many problems to building a family even after you get married. In response to the elder mage, who worried about the future, Aura replied with a meaningful smile. Well, these are problems that arise regardless of whom I marry. It is just a matter of my sincerity and effort now. I already told my future husband this noon, this marriage purely arises from my one-sided circumstances. I will grant his wishes as long as they do not interfere with our government. I understand. That is a family matter, so we will leave that up to you, Your Highness. However, it is a state matter whether you will have a child or not. In the unlikely case that you are incompatible for the night duties, please report to us at once. However, Queen Aura showed no signs of anger over her retainer's blatant words and recrossed her legs while sitting on the chair, giving a profound answer. Yes, that will be a matter for later, but I have already thought of a way to deal with it. However, I believe your concern is unnecessary. I will properly make a child with my future husband. Who? May I inquire where this confidence comes from? The elder mage asked curiously, whereas Aura replied with a sweet smile. Oh, it is quite simple. Sitting across from him, I had dinner with my future husband tonight and his gaze was painfully fixated on my chest. He himself thought I would not notice, but it was without a doubt a lustful gaze. It appears my body is stimulating enough for his sexual desire. Saying so, Aura threw out her extra-large chest proudly. What men considered to be just a glance was as good as staring for women. Somehow or other, Zenjirou's wicked thoughts were completely exposed to the queen. On the next day, Zenjirou waited meekly in front of his superior, who solemnly looked at the letter of resignation before him with his arms crossed. You're quitting? His superior asked grumpy, whereas Zenjirou lowered his head commendable. Yes, I am sorry. In fact, it was a company with harsh working conditions. People quitting wasn't all that unusual, but in Zenjirou's case, he had managed his work for years and finally became a part of the working force, only to quit now. His superior couldn't just tell him, fine, just get out here, like with the newcomers. As the perfect model for a middle-aged man with his wrinkles, balding and drooping belly, his superior glared up at the standing Zenjirou from his seat. Going home to succeed the family, huh? Didn't you take this job because you hated that? Reading the made-up excuse for quitting in the resignation letter, his superior looked grim and tilted his head. Zenjirou had written the resignation letter, which his superior was looking at right now, with all his might last night, so he could quit smoothly. Well, yes. What can I say, I kind of had a change of heart. Since he couldn't write that he was going to be a sponger by marrying the queen of another world, he had no choice but to lie for the reason. Breaking out in a cold sweat mentally, Zenjirou made a meek face. Well, even if I force you to stay, you wouldn't do your job properly anymore. Fine. These words came out of the mouth of his superior after a long glare. Hearing that, Zenjirou inadvertently made a sigh of relief. But as to spoil his delight, the middle-aged superior raised his voice. However, at least finish all your projects that are due soon properly. Of course I'll assign your long-term projects to someone else. If he had the right to choose, he would say not okay. To be honest, he couldn't waste a single second right now, as he was preparing for his trip to the other world. Before he was summoned back in month. As to not even waste a single second, Zenjirou first opened an online search site and entered all the keywords he could think of. Aw, damn. Guess it's no good. After a couple of minutes, Zenjirou tore his hair in front of the various tabs of searching sites. What Zenjirou missed badly during his 2 days 1 night stay in the other world was mainly electric tools like air conditioning, a refrigerator or light. None of these worked without a constant supply of electricity. So what Zenjirou first looked for was a small power generator for domestic use. However, a convenient generator that kept providing electricity for years and could be taken to the other world didn't exist. The most simple would be a diesel or petrol generator. But the fuel. This kind of generator, which was sold for camping, could easily provide electricity without any special setup, but naturally it needed a fuel like petrol or diesel oil. He had to carefully pick the power generator carefully. The amount of fuel he could fit on a single carpet wouldn't even last for a month. So he can't use gasoline or diesel. Steaming power's no good. Then next is wind or solar power. Wind power was pretty realistic. The wind blew in the other world too. But what worried him was the fickle output. Since it literally depended on the wind, it would be useless at a calm, sultry night. Solar power was totally out of question. Zenjirou needed electricity for light at night above all. Electricity that could only be used during the day wasn't appealing at all. He could buy a solar power generator with an integrated large battery for night use, but batteries were consumable goods with an extremely short lifespan. It was unreliable as a long-term power source. That only leaves the wind/solar hybrid power generator that's the current fad. That one doesn't seem bad. However, Zenjirou was conflicted over one more power generator he coincidentally stumbled upon, even when he reached that conclusion. A hydropower generator for domestic use. With wind or solar power it was difficult to provide the necessary electricity for one household, even with favorable wind and sun, but not for hydropower. If the specifications in the producer's catalog could be trusted, the output of even a small one matched the power consumption for a single household. In other words, Zenjirou could use all the electronics here, like the air conditioning, refrigerator and computer, simultaneous without a problem even in the other world. But as good as it sounded, there was a problem as well. That said, there were troublesome formalities like the river law involved starting with the purchase through to the setup, so it wasn't simple on sale at the nearby do-it-yourself store like the fuel-based power generators. However, as long as there was no solution for the generator, he couldn't settle on the electronics to take along. Zenjirou suddenly noticed a fundamental problem and sighed. According to the homepage he just read, the responsibility for safety wasn't with the buyer, but with the trader that set it up. So the chance that they sold only the goods was rather low. Yeah, figures. Every company has a mandatory consultation, local examination and estimate for setup before the purchase. It seemed the hydropower generator wasn't something to buy with ordinary methods. In that case, would it be okay when I let them set it up at some river here, learn the course of action from watching and secretly disassembled it later to take it with me to the other world? Zenjirou mumbled that and was reminded about the old village he was born in right away. I think there was a tattered hut on the mountain near the village and close to it should be a small river with a rather fast stream. The land rights there should still belong to me, I think. When Zenjirou graduated from university and found employment in the city, he had transferred the main house and fields to his uncle and his wife, as they had taken care of him. But the hut and land around it were still under his name. Luckily enough, that hut was just a small storage shed without any electricity. It shouldn't raise any suspicion if he told them that he wanted to set up the small generator in the nearby river for electricity in the hut. Zenjirou had anticipated the setup and maintenance matters, so the shock from it was relatively low, but the guaranteed runtime of 3 years at the end gave him an immeasurable shock. 3 years, only 3 years. Zenjirou mumbled with empty eyes. He was prepared for it to a certain extent. To begin with, even if a dreamlike generator existed that functioned until his death without any maintenance, the important electrical appliances, the air conditioning or refrigerator itself, had a limited lifespan. Their service life was about 10 years at best. Either way, we would be plunged into the lifestyle of the other world without any cultural conveniences after some time. Therefore Zenjirou considered the electrical appliances he would bring with him as kind of training wheels for him to get used to the new culture. Well, I guess I can bridge some time when I buy 3 spare batteries. I somehow want to have enough for 10 years. The bearing is good for 10 years and difficult to change, so I won't need a spare. But since most of the electrical appliances only have a lifespan of 10 years anyway, I might as well try to do some repairs by myself then. Zenjirou didn't want to abandon his plan to take electricity with him, even if it became useless after some comfortable years in the beginning. Zenjirou got himself a cart and started transferring all the other items to the warehouse. After finishing moving, he lay down exhausted and panting. It was so hot and heavy, I thought I was going to die. Well, whatever the case may be, I guess this means that all my preparations are complete. Now all that left is to transfer all electronics to the warehouse with the help of moving company. Zenjirou suddenly remembered about a carpet given by Queen Aura. What's this, Aura-san? We have a magic carpet with barrier magic weaved into it, which is the foundation for the space-time magic. We will give you the carpet for your return to the other world, and if you activate its barrier when we summon you again in a month's time, it should bring over everything inside that barrier. In the end, it is just a single carpet. It most likely cannot store all of your fortunes, but at least you will be able to bring more than with your bare hands. Zenjirou, keeping his eyes closed, was thinking about Aura while also thinking about the time left for his departure. I will only be here on Earth a little longer. The day I'm supposed to go back is coming soon. I have finished all the tasks that I needed to do. Now all that is left is to say goodbye. Zenjirou bathed in the twilight and looked at the familiar 2-story home, narrowing his eyes a bit. Nothing has changed here. Since he had lost his parents in middle school, this house, where now the family of his uncle lived in, was home for Zenjirou. Okay, here I go. He felt a bit nervous as he hadn't been home in years, so he purposefully spoke out aloud to get a grip and determined rang the doorbell. It's been a while, Zenjirou-kun. You look well. Zenjirou's uncle, Yamai Tadashi, welcomed the son of his late brother. He still looked like Zenjirou remembered him, a slender face with glasses and a gentle smile. The family of his uncle consisted of 4 people. His uncle, his aunt, their daughter in her senior year of high school and their son in his senior year of middle school. The daughter attended a high school far away and lived in a boarding house, so only his uncle, aunt and the son were sitting at the table this night, but there were 5 chairs, not just 4. The 5th chair belonged to Zenjirou. They had only taken care of him for nearly 1 year, from the summer in his 2nd year of middle school, where his parents died, till he moved over to the dormitory of his high school, but the caring couple always kept a chair for Zenjirou even afterwards. Okay, we can catch up later, first we eat, dear. The aunt announced the start of the dinner like that and brought a steaming pot over from the kitchen. She was the typical, hard-working old lady from the countryside, both in appearance and character. Zenjirou tried to stand up to help her, but the aunt stopped him with, "It's okay, sit down," and set the table so quickly that there wasn't even time to help. Taking off her apron, she then sat down on her own chair. The aunt, the son and Zenjirou followed suit and the Yamai family started their dinner. Needless to say, the talk this night was all about Zenjirou. I see. You're going overseas, Zenjirou-kun. At night on the same day. After the dinner, Zenjirou went straight to bed. The 10 square meters Japanese-style room hadn't changed at all from the time when he occupied it from the summer in his 2nd year of middle school till the end of his 3rd year. A study desk in the corner of the room. An old radiocassette player on top of the dresser that only played CD. The mattress he laid out after taking it out of the closet earlier was still the same too. I guess this will always be my room. His uncle's family had taken care of him from middle school to university and he loved them for it, but inside his head there were still relatives rather than family. Relatives, as close as a family. However, the uncle might see it differently. I guess I've to repay them at least a bit. Zenjirou spread his legs and lay down on the mattress. They had kept the room of an adult that already left the house in order, so he could return at any time. The housing situation in the countryside certainly allowed that, but it was undeniable that this was a perfect example of the goodwill from his uncle's family towards him. Fa! Looking up to the round fluorescent light that brightened up the room, he sighed. Just as he sighed, a faint scent of bug repellent from the mattress teased his nose. It was inappropriate, but Zenjirou felt a bit relieved from it. Because his own scent was completely gone from the mattress and gave him the impression that this no longer was a place for him to return. Well, at any rate, I'm saying goodbye to this world in 10 days. It's too late to regret anything now anyway. Suddenly, he heard a knock on the door. Knock knock. Zenjirou answered, yes. He found his aunt standing outside the door with a smile. Oba-san, Zenjirou inquired. What are you doing up at a time like this? Zenjirou-kun, called by aunt. She asked in a concerned way. Is there something going on you can't tell us? She continued. It just seemed like you were holding yourself back from saying something at dinner. Are you okay? She further asked the question. The time to prepare went by in an instant. It had been exactly 1 month since the day he made the promise with Aura. The shabby hut with the zinc roof stood isolated on the mountain draped with morning dew. Inside that tattered hut, Zenjirou sat in the middle of the magic carpet and waited for the right time. To sum it up in one word, he looked ridiculous. Right now, he wore a gray suit and shouldered a big backpack on his back like one used only for professional mountain climbing. That alone made him look pretty suspicious already, yet he also held a box cutter in his right hand like a sword and upheld the tip of his small finger on his left hand. He had continued to spill blood on the carpet by periodically pecking at the wound on his left little finger with the box cutter in his right hand, and was now driven by an immense anxiety. He immediately threw the box cutter away and put both his hands down on the carpet. Then he heard a clank noise from his right, and in the next moment, the appealing voice of a female, which he hadn't heard for a month, came from above his head. I welcome you, my future husband. I am glad the second summoning went well. Now I can finally say this with all sincerity. Welcome to this world, to my country. I am glad to see you, my lifelong partner. Aura-san. Zenjirou had perfectly transferred along with the carpet, and forgetting to stand up, he looked up at the queen, who spread her arms welcoming, while he still was on his knees like a fool.